Okay, I would request those who joined in to mute for now, mute your microphones. I hope some more people are going to join in. Here's a question for me from Mitch Bishop. Yes, I am collecting data for extension. To answer your question, Dr. Richmond. So my name is Emmanuel Omondi. It would be nice to wait until everybody has joined in before we start, but we can do that because people have got other things to go to. So we're gonna start. This is the first of 19 webinars that we're gonna be having every Tuesday. Before I go very far, can you guys hear me just fine? Can someone unmute and let me know?
We can hear you just wonderfully.
Cool, thanks very much. So I was saying that this is the first 19 webinars that were originally made in 2020 by Steve Groff, who I haven't seen him yet, but he's supposed to join in today. It takes you, as I mentioned, through the communication that we've sent you from the beginning. If you are interested in growing hemp, if you've never grown it before, or if you just want to get better at it, these webinars will be able to prepare you for that. So some of the discussions that will be going on in the webinar, we'll be talking about 2020, what we are going to do in March of 2020, or January of 2020, and so on, because these webinars were recorded by Steve when he gave live presentations about growing hemp from the beginning to the end in Pennsylvania. To start us off, I just want to give a brief background about myself. Then I'll introduce members of the panel today. We have Steve, if he is going to be able to join in. We have Anand. We have Dr. Mitchell Richmond from the University of Tennessee. I'll introduce them one at a time, and I'll give them an opportunity to also give a very brief background of themselves. So I was just saying that I was born and raised on a small farm in Kenya years ago. I worked on that small farm until I went to college there, finished my undergraduate degree there, and then worked for a nonprofit sustainable agriculture training institution, training and extension, kind of the same as a community college in the United States. Then I got the bug to want to get more education. So I ended up at the University of Wyoming to get my master's and PhD in agronomy. I worked as a postdoc at the University of Wyoming for 4 years before joining the Rodell Institute in Pennsylvania. That's where I met Steve Groff. I didn't meet him at one of these webinars, but Steve is an accomplished grower and also a consultant on cover crops. At the Rodell Institute, I worked for a long-term project that looked at two organic systems and a conventional system. We were comparing both of those in terms of the organic principles that are necessary to grow crops, grains in those systems compared to conventional. And those three systems that were being compared were split between tillage and no-till. For those of you who have tried no-till in organic, you know it's a tough cookie, it's difficult. You have got to use cover crops, which are grown in the previous year in the fall, and then you use some methods of roll crimping them for you to be able to establish crops that the cover crops could then be used as a weed control. We were going to be discussing those, at least Steve is going to be discussing those in one or two of the webinars. So cover crops is going to be a big part of these webinars as we go along. Anyway, because of Steve's consulting in cover crops, that's when we met. And he was consulting for us and for my project right up to the time when I left the Rodell Institute to join Tennessee. Here at the Tennessee, I'm the agronomist responsible for research and extension in industrial hemp. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I rely on conversations that I have with you guys who have grown hemp before, with Steve and other experts from a multi-institutional and multidisciplinary areas that are involved in hemp, so that together, when we put our minds together, we can be able to do this and do it right. So very briefly, that's about me. I don't know if Steve is here. Is Steve here yet? If he is not, I want to invite Mitchell, if you could introduce yourself and maybe say something a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. I'll try to run my video. I don't know how much service I have.
You can do that.
Nice to be here this evening.
I'm gonna
glad that you're doing this webinar, and happy to be here representing UT, and look forward to working with you in the future. If I can be of any assistance for anyone, I don't know if I'll be able to attend all these webinars every Tuesday for the next, you said 19 weeks, I believe.
19 weeks. Yes.
I am happy. I am happy to be a resource for anyone. We are doing some hopefully joint projects next year, but I do have some hemp research at the stations at Highland Rim in Springfield, Tennessee, which is Middle Tennessee, and then I have some research over East Tennessee at Greenville. But other than that, I'll just end by saying, please reach out if you need anything from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitchell. Now I want to introduce Anand. Anand is also going to talk about some housekeeping issues that are related with this program. So Anand, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Omondi. Good evening, everyone. My voice is audible?
Yes.
So basically, this is a 19-week long seminars, and we have tried to cover as many topics we can. We have seen from the Tennessee Hemp Industries Association or other farmers' experience, and they have shared their problems. So we are trying to cover as many topics as we can. And the first of all, there are lots of farmers were confused with how to register. They were thinking they have to register for all these 19 webinars. So if you register for any one of them, you are good for all the rest of 18 seminars. You don't need to register each and every time, but we'll send you each time with the next topic and who will be presenting the topics and what content we'll cover in the next webinar, and with the Zoom link also, because that won't change for rest of the 18 seminars. So you don't have to register for all of them. One registration is good for rest of them. And also each week I will encourage you to fill some of the questionnaire. So which topic you want us to cover, which a speaker, if you have any suggestion for a speakers, so we can incorporate in the same webinars. If you want to invite any, if you also want to speak your experience or your problems, what you have faced in the previous year, or regarding the genetics, regarding the market or anything. So we will give like 5 to 10 minute time at the end of the webinar, they can share with other farmers. So the basic premise is that apart than the speakers, you guys also connect to each other, so we can have more information and we can create a knowledge group. Because I have seen Tennessee Hemp Industries Association are not able to organize in-person workshops they were doing every month. So we want to fill that gap, and please feel free to recommend any speakers, any topic that we might forget to add into that in our program, and we'll try our best to bring the best speaker, even farmers, and their experience. So after each webinar, there will be a few questionnaire we'll send you, and we'll appreciate if you send us back, because that way these long-term commitment on long-term program can be more successful and beneficial for our hemp program at Tennessee State University and the state of Tennessee. So that's all I want to say here, and you can reach by email, you can call us. We'll try to be more frequently available to you guys. So feel free to call, email, anything if you have a problem regarding registration or if you have any suggestion about the program. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anand. I am seeing few people have joined in yet. I would like to invite those who have joined in one at a time to just say who you are, where you are at. If you don't mind, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could do that, let me see if I can do that by asking individuals. There are some people who have joined in by phone, so I'll not really be able to know who they are. Could you just have people volunteering to say who they are? Maybe raise your hand and we'll pick your name.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Roshonda Coleman. I'm here in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm actually on the phone, but once I get my daughter situated, I will be getting onto Zoom so you can see me. But Rosebuds is my company's name, and I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to learn any and everything that you have to give about him.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Just unmute and say who you are. Go ahead, Rosa.
Okay, my name is Rosa Knox. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, but we will be growing hemp in Moscow, Tennessee. So I'm glad to be on this call with you. I've done one class one time.